What do you get when you cross Woody Harrelson's doppelganger with a bucket of lime plaster and a trowel? A pargetter! But what is pargeting? Pargeting is the art of turning lime plaster into beautiful ornamental designs, adding texture and flair to an otherwise smooth, flat surface. Here's James Collier. He is a rare mix of a man who could read a set of plans, manage a project, and self-perform carpentry and masonry. The thing that sets James apart is his artistic expression in construction. He can and has performed the hard physical work of a mason, but has the delicate touch required to create sculpting masterpieces with lime plaster. James has often been mistaken for Woody Harrelson. I think you can see the uncanny resemblance here in their Zombieland hats. I first encountered James' work while scrolling through my newsfeed on LinkedIn. I didn't understand what it was at first, but I was very impressed. To use a British term, I was gobsmacked. To be able to incorporate such beauty into an otherwise plain, flat surface was a revelation to me. I became intrigued by his work and watched closely for any new posts he shared. Earlier this year, I was filming episodes for Wood, Stone and Steel in the UK. I happened to be in Sandwich filming Philip Gaseous of Gaseous Plastering, teaching a class on Elizabethan plastering. Philip was in the kitchen with his pupils when, lo and behold, I saw this gentleman sitting down with the Woody Harrelson Zombieland hat. I said, "James?" He said, "Yes." I said, "I'm Ken Sisk from the US. We've been messaging through LinkedIn about your work." He said, "I remember you." I spoke to him briefly about why he was taking this class and what his background was. He gave me the elevator pitch about his life because he had to get back to class. I remember him telling me he was a bricklayer, he had both hips replaced at the age of 46, was a motocross enthusiast in his youth, and recently had a near-death motocross accident, which required him to be helicoptered to the nearest hospital. He said he discovered the art of pargeting during his recovery from this accident. I immediately knew his story would make a great future episode. I didn't mention it to him then, but it weighed heavily on my mind for months. I had scheduled more filming in France for Wood, Stone and Steel in September, and my wife was supposed to be with me for the duration. But there was a sudden change of plans because my wife's father became ill. Unfortunately, she couldn't make the trip. So I had 1 week of filming by myself because my camera crew was already scheduled to come a week later. I decided to take the opportunity to travel around France and London to film more content for future episodes. I called James to see if he would like to be interviewed, and lo and behold, he agreed. The problem was that I was already flying into Orly Airport in Paris first, and he lives all the way in Stowmarket in the United Kingdom. But being passionate about making wood, stone, and steel a reality, I'm not afraid of hard work or extra travel. I had to meet James and learn more about his story. So, reminiscent of the 1987 film, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, I flew to Orly, taxied to Paris to drop off a couple of bags, then on to Gare du Nord for the high-speed train to St. Pancras Station in London. On the map, it looked like my Airbnb was close, so I decided to walk it. Maps always make things look closer than in real life, and soon, one of my suitcase wheels melted as I dragged my luggage through the streets of London. I filmed throughout London the entire next day. The following morning, I Ubered to Stratford Station, then took a train, to a bus, to another train, and arrived in Stowmarket at 10:30 a.m. and met James. We then went on to visit 3 of his projects, and I got the interview I was looking for. Wood, Stone and Steel will take you on a journey of reconnection with a more natural way of building. We will visit places, buildings, and structures that are primarily made of natural materials throughout the world. In our journey, you will also meet artisans and design professionals who bring beauty, comfort, and familiarity back into our world. This episode is sponsored by Best of Lime, innovators in lime plaster. Hello everyone, I'm Ken Sisk and welcome to Wood, Stone and Steel. Today I am with James Collier, pargetter extraordinaire, and I'm near Stowmarket in the UK, mid-Suffolk I think is the region, right James?
That's right.
Okay, and so we did earlier in the day take a view of some of James' work, which is incredible, and you'll see that later on in this video. But James, so now, did you grow up in this area?
No, I'm actually a Norfolk boy, so which is the next county along. I grew up in a city called Norwich and lived in the surrounding villages, and I'd always lived in Norfolk up until literally about 2 weeks ago, and I've moved to here.
Okay. Yeah, this is an incredible house that you just moved into. How old is this house again?
It's knocking on the door 500 years old.
500 years old. Okay, timber frame construction, still standing here. It looks beautiful from the outside. Yeah, so as far as the process, I mean, your education, as far as getting to pargeting, I know you didn't get into pargeting till later in life. So in the nascent stages of your construction building prowess, we'll call it, right? From, I guess, grammar school into high school. I don't even know if that's the right terms here as far as education. How's it work?
High school, yeah.
It goes high school here too?
Yeah.
All right. So then you got into the trades, I guess, early on. But I think you did mention to me that your father was a joiner.
Yes.
So you had a little bit of exposure to that type of element as far as
yes.
trade.
You could say as a kid I kind of grew up on a building site as such, because my father was kind of extending and renovating our home at the time, and every weekend there'd be tradesmen come round, some bricklayers and such, and as a kid I was always there, I was always keen, always showed an interest and wanted to see what they were doing and wanted to help. And my father's a joiner by trade, so I kind of picked up quite a bit about woodworking skills and that kind of thing from my father, and I always, there was something that appealed to me a little bit with the construction industry as such and building.
Okay.
Although I didn't go that route initially when I first left high school, my father had then retired as a joiner and taken up business as a market gardener. So that's a horticultural. He grew tomatoes and lettuces on a commercial scale.
Wow.
So big greenhouse.
All right, so for the viewers, just to let you know, a joiner is what we would call in the States a carpenter. So he has to do everything with wood, and that could be a timber frame from cabinetry.
A joiner would make traditionally windows, doors, staircases, that kind of thing.
Okay, so interior. Would they do timber framing or?
Not as a rule. That would be more carpentry rather than joinery. Joinery is more the windows, doors, and the furniture as such.
So more finishing.
Yes. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so that being said, you got in, you get exposed to a little bit of the joinery, left high school, and then what trade did you eventually get into?
When I left high school, to start with, I kind of took what I thought was probably the easy route, and I thought I'm going to work with my father on the nursery. So I went to, when I was 16, I went to horticultural college, and I went for 2 years, and I was going to work on the nursery with Dad and eventually take over the business and such like that. But I soon realised that wasn't for me and I wasn't really enjoying it. So I got out of that and I managed to get an apprenticeship with a large local building firm as a bricklayer.
Okay.
So I did what was considered a proper old school 5-year apprenticeship, 3 years at college, and then a 5-year term apprenticeship.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
So that's 8 years altogether to...
No, it was 5 years in total. 3 years of that were spent in college.
Okay.
And part-time college, part-time on site, but the actual apprenticeship doesn't finish until you've been there 5 years.
Okay, so that was the normal process here.
That was. They don't really do that anymore. It's tend to be more like about a 2-year apprenticeship these days. They don't tend to run it that long now.
Okay. So it sounds like you came out with some good skills.
Yes, yeah. When I was at college, I did quite well at it at college. I got what they call the Silver Trowel Award when I finished in my final year. That you get a trowel that's been chromed and engraved, and I was the student of my year that got the Silver Trowel Award. So that was quite nice.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I got to represent the college in various inter-college competitions, bricklaying competitions, that kind of thing. Took part in all that kind of stuff. So that was quite fun.
So then you went on to work for a company then?
Yes, shortly after I finished my apprenticeship, I left them and went self-employed. And my buddy that I used to go to college with, and we'd work in pairs on the models, he asked me if I'd go subcontracting with him, which I did. And so him and I worked together for a small local building firm doing all that brickwork for about 6-7 years, something like that. And then I went off on my own and set up as just a sort of a one-man band general builder. So I'd take on extensions and such and take on the whole job myself, and I did that for about 20 years.
Holy mackerel. That was a lot. I mean, so did you sub out the electricity, the plumbing,
Yeah,
did that whole general contracting?
Yeah, I'd tend to build all the bricklaying and the carpentry and the groundworks, that kind of thing. I'd do all of that. But if there was any plumbing or electrical work, I'd get contractors in for that, because I can't do that.
Okay, but it was between the contract was between you and the customer.
Yes.
That's where you really got your, I guess, business acumen at that point.
Yes.
Which a lot of builders have a hard time getting into. But for 20 years, that's a pretty good run.
Yes. Yeah.
You know? And so another crazy hobby, I guess you do, is the motorcycling. So I don't know if it's motorcycling. What is it called?
Motocross.
Motocross. There you go.
Yeah. So I raced motocross. I was very into it in my teens and my early 20s, and I raced up until I was about 26, 27, I think, something like that, before I packed up, and then got married. The usual thing: children, houses, and all of that. So all of that stopped. And then quite a few years later, I decided to have another go at it in my early 50s, crazily enough, which resulted in a very nasty accident.
Oh wow! So you tried to get back on motocross later on?
I started competing again, and I got into it.
Was it the over 50 division?
Well, should have been. So I raced again for another couple of years, and I had a very nasty get off at a track, which kind of finished it for me. That was it. I was like,
so pretty substantial injury?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Aye. How's it going now?
Yeah, it's not too bad. I've got a permanent. I can't lift my left arm past shoulder height because I've got severed tendons. So there's a certain amount that I can't do with that arm anymore. So then, being a self-employed builder that kind of made my life a little difficult anyway.
Right. If you want to do some hands-on stuff versus subcontracting.
If I was working on my own, there was silly things like I can't anymore. I can't put a screw into a ceiling in a piece of plasterboard because I can't put my left arm up.
Oh my gosh!
So I can't even do that.
Wow. All right.
I've got use of the arm. It's fine, but no, I can't do anything over there at that height with it.
Okay. So you can never volunteer for anything.
No, not with that hand.
All right. So now I'm trying to think here. How do you get this transition from being a mason to general contractor? You get into, say, a major accident later on in life, but then how do you get to pargeting? Because I've been following you on Instagram for the last couple of years, and we've met when you were doing an Elizabethan plastering class out in Sandwich last year. Mm-hmm. And I've been looking at your work. It's incredible.
Thank
you. How do you get from doing that to, it's not just pargeting, this is artistry in pargeting. Okay. Right? Yeah. Because you come up with bespoke work, which is your personal ideas in your heads that you're able to replicate on these surfaces, whether it's interior or exterior. So how did you get to where you are right now from that point in your life? Say you're around 50 at that point when you heard everything. Oh, wait, one thing more. You had both hips replaced.
Yes, I did. Yeah. That was all part of kind of what led me to wanting to come out of building work, because I felt it had taken its toll on my body. Basically, I'd worked too hard for too long, and I paid the price. Basically, I had severe osteoarthritis in both hips. I could barely walk. Actually, 48 years old, I had to have bilateral hip replacements, and which was fine. I had it done, and I recovered and everything, and I went back into building because I didn't know anything else. But I was keen to do something else, but it was all I ever knew, really. Yeah. So I didn't really know what else to do. So the pargeting thing kind of happened by accident, or not by accident, by chance. At the time, I was living in an old, what's called a clay lump cottage. So it was a building that sat on a low brick plinth, and then there are clay, and it's a mixture of clay and straw blocks that are made on site from the ground. They dig out the clay, mix it with straw, a little bit of aggregate, put it into a shutter, cast it, take it out, let the block dry out, and then they made enough to build the property, and then they laid them as blocks with lime mortar, and then it's all rendered over.
How old was that structure?
It was around about 200 years old. Yeah, so I was gradually renovating the property as while we were there, and on the outside of the property had been originally, it had a lime plaster finish with a lime wash, but that had been covered over with a cement pebble dash render that was put on in the late 60s apparently, and it was causing massive damage to the house. We almost lost the whole gable end because once where it cracked, the render, the moisture had got in, the clay lump gone soft, and then ants had got in there over years and had nested in all the soft clay, and they'd hollowed it all out. So it was like an aero bar inside. It was literally the wall was gradually dropped. So anyway, I had to take the render off, rebuild all that corner, and then I thought, all the render's got to come off, and I've got to put this back to how it should have been. So I've got to lime plaster the whole thing and lime wash it. So I stripped it all off, did any repairs, and then I lime plastered it. We T-cozied the property with an insulating lime plaster first.
All right, so T-cozy means you did some sort of insulation around
so I
the
wrapped,
outside.
when I say T-cozied, I mean I wrapped the building from the outside with one coat of insulating lime plaster, which is basically a mix of lime plaster and perlite.
Oh, perlite, okay.
Yeah, so again, which is sort of a natural product. Well, it is a natural product. And that's a really good insulator. So that was my scratch coat as such. And then I finished it with a smooth lime plaster finish. And while I was doing this, I just had the thought that I'd really like to put a large date plaque on the front of the house in lime plaster. And I've seen little pieces of that are scattered around the countryside, which was apparently that was called pargeting. And I was going to try and find a pargetter to do this for me. And I was talking to the guy on the phone from the lime company where I bought all the lime from. And he said to me, why don't I have a go at it myself? And I kind of thought about it and thought, okay. I sort of knew I could draw, but I haven't really done anything since I was at school all those years ago. But I thought I'd have a go because being a bricklayer and I'm used to handling mortars, I'm from the wet trades, bricklayers and plasterers, they know how to handle mortar. So I kind of thought maybe I wouldn't be too bad at it. So I thought I'd have a go. So I did a circa 1850 in nice 18th century font and a fleur-de-lis each side. And I really enjoyed doing it. It took me about a day and it came out really well. It came out okay. I was pretty pleased with it. And didn't really think anything more of it. That was kind of it. And then I was working on the next elevation of the property. And while I was doing so, lots of neighbours and people walking past, people stopped and asked me who did the date plaque on the front. And I said, I did. And they were everyone went, oh, wow, that's really cool. So it kind of inspired me a little bit. And I thought, I was building an oak porch at the time. And I thought, oh, I know, I'll do a bit more. So I did a vine growing up and through the porch and out the top with a pair of swallows each side. And then I did a lunar hare and a pheasant down in the ground and then a squirrel up on the window. And then I thought I'd do a nice little welcome in old letters over the front door, which I thought would be quite cool. And then I did all that again, really enjoyed it. It came out nice. And I thought that's the end of that. Enjoyed doing that. But that's it now, back to work. And then my next job as a builder was actually renovating an old forge in Suffolk for a lady, and she needed it done in lime plaster. It was a clay lump building, and because I'd just done that to mine, she'd heard about what I'd done, just the rendering, and she wanted me to lime plaster her building for her. No pargeting or anything like that. And she came around my house to have a look at my work, just to see what my standard of my work was like. And then she saw the pargeting, and she was kind of like, oh wow. Actually, and then she ended up getting me to, I did a big nature scene on a wall for her in front of her kitchen window, which she loved. And in the end, she kind of gave me a free license just to do more and more artwork around the outside of the building, and I really enjoyed doing it. And I thought to myself, wow, this would be really nice if I could do this for work, for a living instead of building. This would be perfect. I love it. And so what I did was I posted lots of my work on social media just to let people see what I'd done. Didn't really think it'd go anywhere.
Right, but that's when I got introduced to James. Seeing it on social media, I was like, this is incredible. I've never seen anything like this. Because what it is, it's an exterior surface of a building, which is usually just a plain lime render. And you start to create this 3D elements that become part of the structure that are enduring, they're tough, and it is beautiful. So I was like, my gosh, I got to meet this guy.
So, I posted lots of pictures on social media. And then one day out of the blue, the guy I'd spoken to previously at the lime company, who said to me originally, why don't you give it a go? He'd seen some of my work on social media, and he rang me one day out of the blue and said to me, he didn't really know me particularly. I just bought a lot of lime off him as such. And he said, so you've not done this before? And I said, no, not only what I've done on my house and this here. And he says, right. He said, what do you normally do? I said, well, I'm a bricklayer builder. He said, I've got to be honest. He said, your talents are wasted. He said, I think you've got something there. And I didn't really believe him. I kind of said, really? And he said, no, seriously, you've got something there. You should, maybe you should think about doing this instead. And then I thought, oh, wow, I can actually, after having my hips replaced, and I wanted to get out of all that heavy work, I thought I can see a way out. Maybe if I can put this out there enough, I might start to get some jobs. And so I thought nothing really came of anything. I put lots of stuff out there. I did a few pieces, did a little bit of artwork, which I'd sold the odd piece, which was nice. Didn't really think anything more of it. And then in my spare time, I was still racing motocross. And that was when 2 years ago in 22, I had a particularly bad crash at a practice track, of which I still have no memory of the crash.
Oh, my Lord.
No, it was multiple injuries, I was unconscious, bleed on the brain, degloved this hand, bruised lungs, and dislocated this shoulder and severed 3 tendons.
Wow.
So
is your nickname Lucky?
Yeah. So I was a long while. Basically, I was 9 months off work recovering after having 2 of the tendons reattached, but one of them couldn't be. So I was no longer able to use this arm as I should do. And that kind of made me think, oh, now I feel as though maybe now how am I going to manage building? And then while I was off recovering for 9 months, I just spent a lot of time practicing pargeting. I bought an easel and some boards, and I just got some lime, and I wanted to just keep going at it because I enjoyed it so much.
Right. Well, what about the artistry element? That, like you said, you have to go from drawing to actually sculpting.
Yeah, I mean, the more I did it, it just seemed to come naturally. I can't really explain it. Maybe it was, I almost feel as though fate had stepped in and it kind of guided me towards the thing that I should have always been doing my whole life, but it's taken me this long in my life, and the things that got happened to me had to happen in order for me to end up here doing this now. And I don't know, everything just fit. It just kind of came to me really. And the more I did it, the more it just felt right. Everything about it felt right. And it was almost as though, wow, this is what I should have always been. This is what I was meant to do.
It's crazy,
it just felt right. Yeah,
it's amazing how life winds up at that point.
Fate has guided me down the road, and it's after my crash and my hips and everything, and now it's taken me to here. And I've suddenly found this thing that I absolutely love. It's not even like going to work to me. I love doing it.
It's crazy.
No, it's just I just love it. It's not. I have to pinch myself sometimes to think, wow, this is what I do now for a living. I love it. It's so. I enjoy it so much.
I know a lot of the people that we know have in common, even my friends, relatives, I've showed them what you do. They're like, oh my gosh, where is this guy? It's amazing. I want it. Of course, we're in the States, you're here. But I think there's going to be opportunities for you as a result of all this publicity. And your stuff is bespoke work. It's one of a kind. No one can you can't replicate this. It's James Collier.
Thank you.
Now, so, I mean, did you start pargeting right before the accident, or?
I'd started to have a go, but no other jobs really came my way as such.
Right.
I'd only just put what I'd done on my house and that lady's property on social media. So while I was recovering from my crash, I ended up just practicing pargeting a lot, and I put lots of pictures on social media, and then there seemed to be a little bit of interest in some of the artwork framed. So one or two people asked if I was prepared to sell some of what I'd done, which didn't even really occur to me. And I thought, oh, okay, great. Someone wants to buy my work. So made some frames up and started doing a few pieces of artwork. Ended up getting a few bits in some art shops, showed them what I'd done, and they said, yeah, we'd like to have that, and sold a few pieces. Did a few craft fairs. When I did the craft fair, I picked up a couple of commissions. One ended up being a large feature internal wall for a lady in a new build, which was very cool, a big nature scene. And then gradually in time, it kind of takes time to build up a little reputation. But It's probably only been about the last sort of year, 18 months or so. It's finally happening, and people are getting to hear about me. That people have seen what I've done through the wonders of social media, and yeah, I'm gradually picking up more and more jobs. And to me, it's an absolute. If someone wants me to do something on their property, to me, it's a privilege, because they love my work so much that they want me to put something on their house. That's, to me, that's the biggest compliment ever.
All right, a lot of you are probably wondering, what is lime? Lime is made from limestone, which is primarily calcium carbonate. Limestone is a sedimentary rock made up from deposits of coral reefs, shells, algae, and other ocean debris. Geologic history and plate tectonics took what was once at the bottom of the ocean and brought it to the surface where we can access it. Limestone is extracted from the earth by way of excavating and mining equipment. The limestone ore is reduced in size by placing it through a rock crusher to make it more manageable for future processing. This crushed limestone is then placed into a kiln or furnace where it transforms to calcium oxide. This newly formed calcium oxide is also known as quicklime. Water is then added to quicklime to become slaked lime or calcium hydroxide. This slaked lime is usually mixed with other aggregates and additives before it is applied to a surface. This lime mixture hardens over time by taking carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to become calcium carbonate once again. Now you understand the cycle of lime. This video sponsor is Best of Lime, innovators in lime plaster. Located in Suffolk, England, and founded in 2014 by Martin Brown, Best of Lime is creating game-changing proprietary formulas that are reliable, site-friendly, and workable. They're a mix of products aligned with the current demand for low carbon, low embodied energy, and sustainability. Here's a list of their products. Lime Coat is a non-hydraulic, breathable, and extraordinarily flexible lime plaster. It is based on a lost English medieval lime plaster recipe that Best of Lime has resurrected. In fact, it is highly likely that this recipe was used for one of the most extravagant buildings Europe has ever seen, Nonsuch Palace, Henry VIII's grandest and most elaborate building project. The building was timber framed and was decorated with over 700 high-relief stucco panels. Warm Coat was developed to offer insulation for traditional historic buildings where the use of modern systems would be inappropriate and potentially damaging. Used in conjunction with sustainable, breathable boards such as cork, wood fiber, or sprayed hemp, Warm Coat's traditional lime plaster mix can make a significant improvement to the living environment of a home, as well as reducing the energy bill and carbon footprint. Render Coat is based on a blend of limestone aggregates. It is for use only for masonry backgrounds and is intended as a robust two-coat system for high-exposure areas such as parapet walls, chimneys and plinths, and even windmills and lighthouses. Patch Coat is a non-hydraulic lime plaster that can be used on practically any background. Designed to be simple to use by anyone, this is a dry mix that you just add water and has a long life once mixed. Patch Coat comes in a handy-sized tub with a handle for ease of use. Best of Lime offers additional products in support of their main line, such as lime washes, mineral paints, and everything else you need to attach their product to your project. I have put a link to their website in the description below. Best of Lime is the go-to supplier for the most discerning building conservationists, tradesmen, as well as homeowners and DIYers. In fact, James Collier consulted Martin Brown about his Lime Coat product in regards to a pargeting project he was working on. Martin saw James's work firsthand and was one of the first people to recognize his artistic talents and suggested that he pursue a career in pargeting. I want to personally thank Martin Brown of Best of Lime for sponsoring this episode. After seeing James's masterpieces and talking to Martin Brown, I became inspired to try it for myself. Let me see if I can get my hands on a bag of Lime Coat. All right, now it's time to mix the plaster. Martin Brown of Best of Lime was gracious enough to ship this product all the way from the UK here to New Jersey. Best of Lime is the name of the company. This is their Lime Coat product, and this is what we're going to be mixing in our buckets real soon to start our pargeting process. So So right here I have 5 liters of water. I'm going to put in our 5-gallon bucket. All right, and now it's time to add some fibers to the mix. The fibers add strength to the lime plaster.
Now that's like a cake batter.
Maybe I need a little thicker. I added additional fibers to thicken the mix.
Woo! That looks good.
I came up with this sketch. So just a simple vine with leaves. You can see I started off with the main vine itself and kind of just grew it just like you would if it was a natural plant, and then seeing the other vines, the branches grow off of the main vine. And so with that, then I just added some leaves here and there off the vine. So this is going to be what we're going to shoot for. All right, so James said I could use bare bone tools that I have around the house, and I had a lot. So let's start with just some kitchen tools. Fork. It's like one of those butter spoons. Here's a butter knife, and here's a regular teaspoon, right? Simple kitchen stuff to use with. And then I have a couple of mason type trowels. This is a pointing tool. This is a little thicker. An awl, okay? I'm going to scratch the surface with that, and I may be able to use it as I'm making the fine lines of the vine. This as well. This is like a putty knife. I'll be able to go underneath and kind of form things so that I can kind of give it that 3D feel. Oh, here's an interesting tool. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I would be able to use a mason's tool in order to make the vine. So it's like, yeah, maybe it looks like about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch. I say, maybe I'll give a go with this and kind of smooth it out that way. And then I have some plastic spread-on tools that we use for doing some feathering when you're doing plastering work. Simple, very inexpensive. And then I got some fine tools here at the very end. So I'll wet these brushes and be able to kind of smooth things out at the end. So I have different size brushes here. And I got the big trowel here to spread everything on the board at the very end. Not the very end, the very beginning, to make it nice and smooth and keep that back surface. Here I'm scoring the board to help the lime adhere to it. So I'm just doing everything at a 45-degree angle. Why? I don't know. I think that's about it. So now we're going to soften this up by using a brush and some water. Give it a haircut. There we go. All right, now let's get back to James for some expert pargeting.
Okay, so I did this back in April this year, and originally this was just a plain cement render on the front of this porch. This is a modern porch attached to an old building, but they wanted something to give it a more traditional feel that ties in with the pub. So I've done a fox and hound scene with a family of foxes above the door.
Love it.
2 cubs and the parents. Father's on the lookout, and there's a beetle down there. He's trying to get up to them, and then just some nice foliage, some nice plants and flowers, just to try and just make it look more appealing and just kind of.
It is so inviting looking. It's again bespoke work.
Yeah.
That is incredible. It really adds a warmth to actually coming into the pub.
And that's finished with a pigmented lime wash to give it that colour. Traditionally, it would just be a white, naturally.
All right, James, what's your favorite piece of your work on this project, the Fox and Hound Pub?
My favourite piece on this, but I think in particular, is I love the hound, and I love the way I've got his ear. Just, it really comes out. There's something about the hound and his head and the ear. I love that. I just love how it looks. I like the foxes, but I do like that hound. I think it's quite comical, really, how he's trying to get up there.
It is. The 3D element of your work just really brings it all out.
I like to try and go what's known as quite heavy relief, if I can, on certain things, just to help create that three-dimensional impression, even though it's not actually, but it just helps create some shadows, and when the light is just right, it casts shadows and it really brings everything out, creates depth.
I love it. And it did achieve the 3D effect. There's no doubt about it. And now this is a project that you recently just completed.
Yes, I'm still got to come back here next week just to do a little bit more lime washing.
All right, so let's take a
This is my
look.
latest project, and this is a modern construction porch on an old building. It originally had cement render on it, and they wanted to give it some character, so I removed all the render back to the blockwork behind it.
So for our viewers who don't know what render is, it's really just
it's just a sand and cement coat. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But it had no character in it. It was just smooth,
Flat.
So I stripped all that off to then use the lime plaster, which is the product that I can use to create heavy relief artwork like this, and it works well. And so I wanted to do a full nature scene.
Yeah.
The customer was very kind, and he said to me, I like lots of wildlife, lots of local wildlife, lots of foliage, plants. He said, but pretty much gave me a free rein. He said, I can do whatever I want, just let my imagination go. So I did.
Hey, it looks incredible.
And he wanted the name Orchard Farm Oaks, which I've done that, and I made it look as though it's in old weathered wood, and there's a vine growing through it.
Any significance to Orchard Farm? The name?
There used to be. There was an orchard here originally years and years ago.
Okay.
That's all gone now. Now they're running a small business from here. So up on the gable end there, we've got there's a bird up there. That was supposed to be that's a blue tit, and then there's a pair of squirrels. We've got the oak tree on the corner, and the oak tree wraps around the corner, so the roots carry round.
Oh, yeah, let's take a look at that. So we've got a rabbit there. We have some more flowers, it looks like.
Yeah. We've got foxgloves. There's a rabbit there, and on this tree, I wanted to bring it round the corner and let the roots wrap around the corner, and then spread over this way. And then down there we've got a pair of fighting cock pheasants.
Wow, the relief work on that is incredible. What thickness do you think it comes off of the main house? Like 1.5 inches, 2 inches?
What, to the thickest point?
Yeah. Maybe
probably
3.
about, well, in terms of inches, probably about 3 inches.
Oh, right. Otherwise,
In my terms,
centimeters.
about 75 mil.
75 mil, there we go.
Roughly. That's pretty much what I can get away with all in one go with this particular line plaster mix that I use.
Now, I love the I guess the background. You got the foreground, which is the animals, but then you have this another layer. I can see we had some sort of surface texture.
Yes.
By
Yep.
the foxgloves.
Yeah, and that's just to create the image of the ground, and then you kind of got the sky in the background.
Wow.
And so when I did that, just to create that, I mean, the cool thing about pargeting is you can kind of use anything at hand that might do the job. And for this was literally a broom head. I plastered it on while it was still soft. I just dabbled it in to create that textured finish. And
really?
then just brought out a little bit more from where it meets the skyline, just to create that the difference between the two.
It does. It makes the 3D elements pop.
And as you can see now at the moment, the angle of the sun right now is catching this just right, so you're getting the shadows. You can really see the relief in the artwork.
Yeah, let's take a look from the other side here, from the corner. Yeah, I see he still has to put the lights on.
Yeah, they're going to put on some up and down lighters. So they'll at night they'll cast a wall light up and down, and
That'll create another architectural shadow at night.
That will help at night. It'll take another whole new look on at night as well, but it'll still highlight the work.
Incredible. All right, let's take a look at the other side here. And all right, so this is still drying then.
So this side here, this had a coat of lime wash Friday, and this side it's now catching the sun, but it's taking a little bit longer to dry because this side doesn't get as much sun as the other two sides. This side faces west, I believe, but there's quite a few trees in the way. But here we have so we've got some hollyhocks. And there's an ivy here growing up the ancient tree stump. The ivy wraps round and up and over the top, and we've got the sun there with a few little clouds and a bird of prey sitting on the stump.
Incredible.
And
Foxglove, and then what's that down there?
And down there, this is a fawn, a young deer.
Oh, cool.
Held up asleep.
And it's amazing. You still have an electrical outlet.
Yes.
And still integrate.
And here we've got some more foxgloves.
This is an incredible work of art, James.
Thank you. It's my largest project to date so far, but I'm happy to take on even bigger ones.
Yeah, all right. So now he teaches classes. Would you be receptive to teaching what you do? Because this is something I believe needs to be pushed out into the world so that younger generations could start to learn how to do this.
Well, funnily enough, several people have asked me, again through social media, do I teach this? Do I run any courses or anything like that? So it's kind of made me think about it a little bit, and I'd quite like the idea of that. So I am thinking of, now I've just moved to this property, I've got some outbuildings, and I'm thinking of turning one of them into an art studio and running some small courses there.
Okay.
Just 2 or 3 people at a time, maybe, see how it goes. But I also might be doing some courses in conjunction with the lime company, which are about sort of half an hour away from here, and they're on about doing something at their workplace where they produce the lime.
Okay.
And running some possibly slightly bigger classes there, but I'd like to start off small here maybe and just see how it goes.
Get the process
down. But I'm definitely up for that. Running some courses, I'd quite like that. And there's so many people that want to have a go at it that I almost feel as though I feel flattered that people want me to teach them. So that's great. So I'd love to. Yeah, it'd be brilliant.
That's pretty cool. Isn't it interesting to know pargeting is an option for the interior or exterior of your home or building? Enhancing a normally flat surface with artistic design elements draws the eye to an otherwise bland wall. Things like adding numbers or a frieze to the outside of your home, ivy crawling up an interior wall, an entire nature scene inside, or flora and fauna to the exterior of your building. In fact, you could even use it all around your pizza oven. All of this will add both curb appeal and beauty to an otherwise uninteresting flat surface. Pargeting has proven itself to last for generations. For those who didn't know what pargeting was before this video, aren't you amazed how a tradesman's artistry can become part of your building? And for those who did know, aren't you pleasantly surprised to see this skill still exists? So let me know down in the comments below. And remember to hit like and subscribe so I can bring you more wood, stone, and steel content. Until next time. Bump up the energy, dance, dance. Doom, 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 doom. Brothers and sisters, bump up the... You know that song, right? Oh my God, it's a great song.